Hi everyone, I'm Nafisa, the Digital Art School producer here at Hospital Rooms. I just wanted to give you a big warm welcome and thank you so much for joining today's session with José Parlá. I really hope you enjoyed today's workshop, and if you hang on until the end, I'll let you know how you can engage further with the Hospital Rooms Digital Art School community. You should have everything you need for today's workshop in front of you, so let's get started. Handing over to José.
Hello, my name is José Parlá. Originally born in Miami, and I live in New York. And I'm a painter, but I also experiment with various forms of art, including video, sculpture, and I'm really into music and using the music and its rhythms to influence the way that I paint. So there's an incorporation of rhythm and dance to the way that I make my art. In particular, I'm having a show that I want to tie this project into titled Phosphene. And a phosphene is something that we all experience. It's something that when we close our eyes and we see colors and dots and flashes of light inside our eyes, through our imagination, we see a different type of what I call closed eye vision. And I want to tie that into creating this piece of art. When working, you can imagine a lot of things when you close your eyes. Sometimes maybe you look at the light and you close your eyes and you start to see shapes and colors. And then from that imagination, you can make anything you want. I'll first talk about what we have here. We have markers. These kind of markers are Winsor Newton is a company I use. There's a lot of ink in these, and it has two sides, a skinny side and a thicker side, so you could change the width of what you're drawing or writing or mark making. You got your brushes, okay, that you use for acrylic paints in tubes, different acrylic paints, and you have watercolor. All of this is water-based paint. I will paint on this watercolor paper to make background color. So imagining different shapes, and you have a little glass of water. So, for example, you take any color, really any color you want, and you put it down on your, this is sort of a wax slab of paper that it's not so sticky, and the paint will glide really smoothly on here. You put the little paint down, for example, and you take any of these brushes, maybe something like that wide, and some water. You get the brush sort of nice and doused with water, and you drop a little water onto the paint right away, and you start to see it puddle, and you can start to sort of lay in the color like this, for example. But you can always, with that, add more water directly. And when you add water, it starts to change the color and dilute it and make it a little bit lighter. So I like to create these puddles. And you can add more paint directly to what you're doing. Okay? And let's say you want to go in this direction and make puddles over here, Like when you add another color, let's say something very different, just to show you, take a little bit of blue, and you can drop a little bit of blue in different zones. And when you add water, you see it spreading, these puddles, and mixing directly on the paper. You could do all kinds of stuff. Just have fun with it. Like that, for example. You can even blow on it. Or you can drag it. Yeah. Add more water. Different techniques. Okay? So, just to show you that, just to get started, and, maybe add a little bit of the different color here, just to give it some contrast. A thing you could do with brushes is you can kind of go like, you can flicker the paint that's on the brush, and it creates, you see, like these dots and a texture, So there's a lot of techniques where you could do, if you want to work on several pieces at once, which is something I love to do, you can take, a blank, one of the blank papers, press it directly onto the existing work that you had already done, right? It's called monoprinting. And, it transfers. So you got two pieces going on at once that they are basically becoming part of a little family of pieces, like a series. If I want to, continue that technique, right? You take the tube of paint, and then directly from the tube, you can draw something. Like, let's say, I'm going to write the word love. Okay? You write any word you want. It could be your name, family name, or anybody you think of, or just any word that comes to mind. And again, you just press it. Okay? And you press it, and it comes out, and you got two pieces going on at once. You can always say, oh, I'm going to put that over here to dry, okay? And then start other ones, and just let those dry, okay? And then this is a very free form of making art, so there's no rules, and there's no, unless you decide you want to do, a landscape or a person, and you can apply these techniques to basically anything you want to do. But me, I'm abstract, so I'm just going into different directions. No rules, no real hesitation as to what direction I want to go. I'm really freestyling for the purpose of just sharing ideas and techniques and colors and other modes of working. So, another way to start is you could just start with water, a little bit of color, so that you can create more shapes. Yeah. And then let's go with other colors, like you could just take the red. And you see that way it starts to move inside the puddle all on its own, which is really nice because you can't control it. You can't predict what's going to happen. It just starts happening on its own because the water's moving and it's creating shapes that you don't have much control over. You can always, like I did earlier, add some color directly to the water, and again it starts to change. We're just basically having fun and imagining colors that you first saw maybe when you closed your eyes. All kinds of different things can happen. You could take a piece of paper that's blank and take one of these markers. Let's just take like an orange one, and you can do your drawing or your writing. Okay, like I showed you, you can go from the skinny tip to the little bit of a wider tip. And then what you can do is you take something that you did with the markers and you press it on the other wet piece. So now you've got layers going, and that's really nice. It just creates a layer. So, you've got 4 pieces going at the same time, and then, you want to add something to this one. I work with calligraphy and storytelling. It's abstract storytelling, so whatever I'm writing and thinking of, I layer in writing illegible. So that way it allows the viewer to imagine that the story is their own, not necessarily just me, Jose, telling you something. It's just your imagination at work. And the thing that's beautiful about abstract art is that you make up the definition of what it means to you, but also it opens up a window to the viewer that the possibilities are endless between what is the imagination and what the imagination can do and develop versus what some people think is reality. Or there's that fine line between reality and abstraction that I love. And I find it to be really therapeutic, and yeah, it's sort of like the freestyle of the mind going into abstraction. Yeah. So you guys can see I'm just doing a bunch of pieces, one after another, just having fun. And maybe I'll bring another one that I started earlier. Yeah. And maybe do another layer. So earlier you saw that I did this red mark, and you know, I have this that has just a little bit of layering on it, but you can always press. You don't have to press directly at the same shape. You could press a little bit lower and crop it in a different way. When you press, you could press lightly, okay? So if you press really deeply and then it spreads the paint more. If you press lightly, then you pick up less. And that's a really nice mark. You can always press a few times. You don't have to just stick to once. You could press another shape out of the same one. Out of the same piece, you could get many. You see, sometimes you have to be careful and just let it sort of slide out like that. And, you know, you get different abstract shapes. And I'm going to just print, again, just for fun, this little section. Yeah, you start to connect different bits. You can see also texture when you press on the paint and you pull, okay? The gravity of the paint being stuck to one layer to the other, it pulls, so it creates these shapes that are like veins inside of what was the wet paint. So when it dries, it actually has like these little ridges and mountainous veins everywhere. It's really nice for texture. So you can see that. Yeah. And I like, you know, like in this bit here, you have lighter colors, and then you do something that contrasts it, that's darker, so you can really, so you could see the difference, you know. Again, with this blue. Yeah. So I'm just writing with the paint, and you gotta squeeze it just enough so that the paint comes out, but so not too Not too much, because if you squeeze it too much, it'll just explode. So you'll gauge it as you play with it, you know. And then again, I just take a piece of blank paper, press it. So yeah, this technique is endless because you could just press it forever. And you start to pick up on things that were wet in the previous piece. You know, let's just move this one out and then we'll bring this one back in. And then again, like you come back with the water and what was wet there, you can change it. It's important to remember that like this is wet right now. So you also have time to let it dry, okay? And let's say it takes like 30 minutes, maybe an hour to dry, right? When it's dry again, you can come back and keep painting on it. When you work on it while it's wet, you have the potential to make it more messy. But when you let layers dry and you come back and work on it again, then you get crisper, cleaner, new additions to the work. Okay, so that's just something to remember, that you don't have to keep working constantly while it's wet. You have the option to let the previous layer dry. You know, like we could just take this and leave it alone. I'm gonna put it here on the floor and just pull out another one. Let's keep working on that. You know, a little yellow. And with color, I generally like to use the rule that all colors are potential to be used together. There's no rules really. So everyone has their own color sensibility, you know, and yeah. You can apply the paint lightly, or you can add a lot of paint and make it thick. It's really up to you how you want to use the color. You can switch brushes. You don't have to use the same brush all the time. You can use a thinner brush and it makes thinner lines. Okay, and then again we take another piece of paper and we do it again. You can also, you don't have to press the whole paper. Let's imagine you just press half the paper. Keep the other half up. So you see, you get like a half a print, which is nice. You know, you put this one on the side and you start another one. And so far I have, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces going on at the same time. And it's important to remember that you're having fun and you're doing this not knowing where you're going unless you already had a predetermined plan. For me, it's more like gestures and abstraction and free flow of ideas and imagination as it comes to me. So it's like a stream of consciousness. And so for me, there's no destination. This is just an exercise to create layers and sort of a poetic moment to get gestures out. It's kind of like whistling, and you're just walking down the road and you're whistling and different melodies come to your mind, and it doesn't really have specific definition, but it's more about just getting feelings, emotions, ideas out there. And so this is a sort of abstract exercise. So, but also remember, you can just always stop, let things dry, and start a new one, okay? So let's do that. Let's start a whole new one. I like this red. The red color is really nice. Let's do more red. And the good thing about working with one color, it creates like the uniformity. So it's like a series. And you could imagine doing like 10 of these and you could spread them out. And because it's one color and it's monochromatic, it feels like one big piece. Like here's another one with red. So now I'm glad that we kind of got to this like point where I'm using the reds as the main thing. I had a little bit of a journey where it was like yellows, blues, greens. I was like thinking, where am I going? And then I decided that the red, even though there's a little bit of green and a little yellow there, the red was like the powerful uniform to this work. And so I really like that. And it really just makes things more together and cohesive, you know. So what I think I'll finish is with 2 tones of reds. You have a dark red, and then you have another one, a naphthol red light. So you can see there are 2 different reds. And I like that because it creates tonality. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and then, you know, even if it drips, you could just pick it up. You see how it starts to change when it drips? Yeah. That's really nice. I'm curious, you could even use some of this paper that's just, you know, the palette paper, and you could use that to do your printing. Because you could pull it, press, just to, you know, have a little bit. If you want to get the textures, like I was explaining earlier, when you have thick, wet paint and you press on it, you get these little textures that are raised up above the paint, and that's always super nice, you know. And what I like about layered works like this is that the layers, because they're sort of like transparent, you have a past and a present, and you can imagine the future. So there's actual history on the surface of the paper and your painting. So all the imagination, all the stories you might have, you know, like for me when I'm painting, I have all these stories rumbling around in my mind, like things from my childhood or people in my life or, you know, something I had for lunch or the music I'm listening to. All of that somehow is translated onto these abstract colors and shapes and lines. And only you might know about it, which is kind of like your own secret language. But then at the same time, you are sharing it with the world, but in a way that it allows them to imagine that that was their language and that it belonged to them somehow. Because art is very free that way, you know. And it's endless. As long as it's wet, you can always keep pressing. So, and even if it looks like a mess, that's okay, because when you clean it all up and you put it in a frame, you'll see how it just becomes this beautiful piece of art. So thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you the best. Lots of love.
We hope you enjoyed today's workshop, and thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to see the artwork that you created today, so make sure to upload to our digital art school gallery that's available on our website. We also invite you to please complete the survey that's available, because your voice matters to us, and it's crucial in helping us to shape the future of the digital art school, which in turn will help others find joy and healing through arts. You can find the links to both the digital art school gallery and the survey in the description below. Thanks again, and we really hope to see you for the next one.